Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to our Srimad Bhagavatam review class. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमः पादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone to our Srimad Bhagavatam overview class. We'll begin with our discussion from the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we are discussing that the various kings which are coming in the line of Swayambhu Manu, starting from Priyavrat Maharaj, and then we discussed how the son of Priyavrat Maharaj, Agnidra, he became the king, and then after that, his son Nabhi, he ruled, and then after that, Nabhi, he did the sacrifice, and then he got the blessings by the Supreme Personality of God himself that he will get a son similar to himself. And actually he will become the son. And then Rishabdev was born, and then we discussed the whole story of how Rishabdev, he ruled the kingdom for many thousands and thousands of years, and then after that he gave his kingdom to his sons, and the eldest of the sons of Rishabdev was Bharat Maharaj, and Bharat Maharaj ruled this kingdom very nicely for many thousands of years. And then after that, after ruling for many thousands of years, he renounced this kingdom, just like it is described in the further chapters. In the 17th chapter, he renounced the world as a person after passing stool, he does not even look at it. And then after that, he did wonderful tapasya, and he was at the level of bhava. But somehow he became attached to a deer, and he fell down from his devotional service. And then when he was dying, he remembered deer. So therefore he became a deer in the next life. But even in the body of deer, he could remember his past life. And therefore he was very cautious not to get attracted to anything. And therefore in this way he left his body, again got the body of a Brahmana in the family of Angira dynasty. Rishi, there was a Brahmana. And then in that he behaved like a dull man. And we saw how when his father died, his stepbrothers, they were engaging him in all sorts of activities, and they were just giving him something to eat. But Jad Bharata, he was equipoised because he was very uh, careful and cautious not to get attracted again in this process of birth and death. And we saw how one time dacoits captured Jad Bharat, and they were about to sacrifice him, and Goddess Kali herself emerged out of the deity and protected Jad Bharata. And then after that, we discussed how once Jad Bharata, as he was sitting in the fields, the king of Sauvir dynasty, Rahugana, he was going on his palanquin, and the carriers of the king Rahugana, they needed one more person to carry the palanquin. So they found this Jad Bharata sitting, and they engaged him in service. But Jad Bharata, because he was a pure devotee of the Lord, he was not he was very, very careful not to kill even an ant. So therefore, he was not walking properly. So because of this, the palanquin was shaking. And seeing this, King Rahugan became very angry, and he spoke so many criticisms and sarcastic words towards Jad Bharata. And we discussed how Jad Bharata, he replied all those sarcastic words very nicely, very philosophically. Hearing all those discussions, King Rahugana, who was also a great devotee, he was also a learned person, he was a Raja Rishi. He could realize this is a great personality, he's not an ordinary person. So therefore he fell down from he got down from the palanquin and fell on the ground and offered his respects and asked, please tell me who you are. You are, you are looking like a very, very perfected sage. And therefore he said, I am very fearful of offending Brahmanas. Naham vishanke surraj vajran natriksha shulan nayamasya dandat nagni na soma nilavitta pastrat shanke bhrisham brahm kulavamanat. So then, see, after this, Jad Bharata, he starts describing, he starts instructing in Rahugana. So that is what we discussed so far. So now, the 11th chapter will begin today. So this 11th chapter describes how the mind is the cause of samskar. Now from this section, this chapter onwards, a very philosophical discussion is starting, which may look a little intense because it is very, very philosophical, but there are lots of wonderful concepts which are being discussed between Rahugana and Jad Bharata. So in this chapter, Jad Bharata, he starts his instructions by describing how mind is the cause of samsara, and by engaging in bhakti, one can attain liberation. So now, we have heard Rahugana asking questions to Jad Bharata. So now Jad Bharata is replying to those questions. In the 10th chapter we saw how Rahugana asked so many questions. So Jad Bharata, now he starts speaking. The first verse says, Jad Bharata is speaking that the wise do not speak about material subjects. He says that although you are not at all experienced, you are trying to speak like a learned person. This is the same thing which Krishna, he told to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Ashocyan anushocastvam pragyavadamsha bhashase gatasun agatasumsha nanushocanti panditaha. So Krishna also told Arjuna, you are behaving and you are speaking like a learned person, but you are like a apandita. You are not an intelligent person. So therefore, Prabhupada writes in the purport that 99% of the people, they try to talk like experienced advisors, but they are actually devoid of spiritual knowledge. And because persons in the outside world, they are devoid of spiritual knowledge, whatever they may speak, they are like the speech of an inexperienced children. Because what does inexperienced children do? They are attached to all the petty things. You must have experienced when the parents, they take the small child on the beach and the child makes a beautiful castle and he is very happy and enjoying making that, and then the wave of the ocean comes and then the whole castle is in water. The child is crying and the parents, they are smiling. This is the same situation with an ordinary materialist is in. They may be building their great castles, but with the waves of the time, the whole castle will be destroyed. So actually Rahugana, he had given the example that, when a pot, because he had asked that you are, I think, fatigued, So King Rahugana had sarcastically told Jad Bharata, I think you are fatigued, that's why you're not walking properly. And he had given the example that actually the pot which has milk and rice, when the pot is heated, the milk inside and the rice also gets heated and cooked. So, but the problem with this example is there is a connection between the pot and the fire. But actually the Atma is a spiritual particle and the body is a material thing. So therefore, the fatigue of the body does not mean the fatigue of Atma. So that is what Jad Bharat will say. So then why we experience, just like Bhagavad Gita says, Ichha Dvesha, Sukham Dukkham Sanghatas Chetana Dhriti. So this is the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 6th verse. This verse says, the Kshetragya, the soul, Kshetragya means one who knows the body. So that is soul. So this verse says that Kshetragya, the soul experiences all this, Ichha, Dvesha, Sukha and Dukkha. How? Although things are happening to the body, all the heat and cold we experience through our body. But why? Krishna is saying there, actually soul is experiencing this. Because we are identifying ourselves with the body. So therefore, Jad Bharat says that people who are interested in materialistic activities, they are engaging in all sorts of material sacrifices, which are described in the Vedas, Vedavadeshu. So the two words Jad Bharat uses in the second verse, he says there are some Vedavadas and there are some Tattvavadas. Vedavadi and Tattvavadi. Who are Vedavadis? Those who are reading Vedas to enjoy this world. They are karma kandis. And who are Tattvavadis? Tattvavadis are those who are engrossed in discussions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That those are the pure devotees of the Lord. They are never attracted by things of the world. People in the outside world, they are attracted to thousands of topics. Shrotavyadini Rajendra Ninam Santi Sahasrasaha Apashyatam Atmatattvam Griheshu Grahamedhinam. So he says Shrotavyadini Rajendra. Shukdev Goswami is telling to Parikshit Maharaj that there are people in this world, they are attached to thousands of topics. Just sit with any of your outside materialistic friends. They will have hundreds of topics to talk about the politics, about the social situation, about the sports and whatnot. Now this COVID thing, the talks are unlimited, endless talks. Nobody is interested in topics about Krishna. That is the difference between the materialist Vedavadis and Tattvavadis. So we are supposed to be Tattvavadis. And Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada quotes this verse from Bhagavad Gita where it is described that Veda Vadarataha. So those who are materialist people, they are attached to the Vedas because they take particular sections of the Vedas and they try to enjoy because their goal is enjoyment. Kamatmana Swarga Para Janma Kalma Falapradam Kriya Vishesh Bahulam Bhoga Ishwarya Gatim Prati. Their Atma is Kama. Kama Atma. Kama Atma means they live for sense gratification. Some people eat to live, some people live to eat. So these people who are materialists, they live to enjoy. Enjoyment is their main goal. Therefore, the goal of the Vedas, they are temporary. Even if you go to heaven, you will have to come down. Shine punya martya lokam vishanti. So materialists, they do not understand all that. They are like ostrich, When the problem is faced by ostrich, the ostrich puts its head down under the ground or sand because it thinks, okay, I'm not seeing any problem. That means there is no problem. So therefore, Jad Bharat is saying people who are Vedavadis, they are only attracted to sense gratification, but become Tattvavadi. And Prabhupada writes, the Vedavadis cannot be purified from material contamination unless he becomes a Tattvavadi. What is that Tattva one should know? The Tattva of the Absolute Truth is known in three forms: Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. And then he says, in the third verse, Jad Bharat says that one who realizes that material happiness is insignificant like a dream, and the Vedas, they become insufficient means for understanding the absolute truth, because the Vedas, They are focusing mainly sense gratification. That's why Narad Muni, he chastised, Vyasadeva in the beginning of the first canto. If you all remember, we had discussed in the beginning of the first canto, right? In the beginning, Vyasadeva was despondent. And Narad Muni comes and says, you have not described the pastimes, name, form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jugupsitam karma kritenu shashatah swabhava raktasya mahan vyatikrama. He says, you have done an abominable work. How many of us have written an article anytime in our lives? Somebody may say, I have written. How many of us have written a book in our life? Somebody may say, but Vyasadeva had written unlimited books, all the Vedas, all Puranas, histories, Itihasas, Vedas. After writing all that, if the teacher comes and says, all your job is useless, nothing is going to happen, you will not benefit anyone. Why? Because you have not described Krishna. Therefore, Vedas are not an excellent source. They may be excellent source, but they may not be able to take one to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo. The three Vedas, they deal with Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Give up all these and try for Pancham Purushartha. That is the purpose of the Vedas. That is why we should endeavor in this world. We are endeavoring so much for so many things. People are endeavoring to get knowledge, not of the spiritual life, but the material knowledge, the mundane knowledge. What is happening in the world? Some people, for them, it becomes a prestige issue. If they are not able to, if they don't come to know the latest news, they think, I am not doing sufficient in my life. So therefore, we should not endeavor. Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido na labhyate yad bhramatam uparayadaha tallabhyate dukkha vadanyata sukham kalena sarvatra gabira ramhasa. Tasyaiva heto, therefore, one should not endeavor for that which is available in all the 14 planetary systems. And what is that? That is the devotional service. That is love of God. You should try to go out of this material world. Then Rahugan may ask, but why do people engage in material happiness despite being enlightened by devotees and all those who are preaching? They know when you go to some materialist, some of your non-devotee friends, and you ask them, please come for a program, please chant some rounds. People, they do not take to it. So now Jadabharat answers why people, they don't take to Krishna consciousness even though they are enlightened. And he says actually the mind is the cause of material entanglement. He says mind, it expands through the senses, and then he says if it is under the control of three modes, mind is like an uncontrolled elephant. Nirankusha means uncontrolled elephant. And because of the mind, all our senses, our gyanendriyas and karmendriyas, our knowledge acquiring senses and the working senses, they engage in various material activities. And because of that, a person is bound in the material world to either suffer or enjoy. And then Jadabharat describes the characteristics of the mind. He says, mind is Vasana Atma. Mind is endowed with all the pious and sinful impressions. Savasanatma Vishayoparakto Guna Pravaho Vikrita Shodashatma Bibhrat Pratannam Abhirupa Bhedam Antar Bahishtam Chapureshtanoti. So Vasanatma, mind is the reservoir of all the impressions, either good or bad. Whatever we have done in our lives, everything is stored in the mind. Vishaya Uparaktaha, mind is very, very attached to sense gratification. Always hankering for some sense gratification, either in the form or touch or smell or taste or hearing. Always thinking. You go out in the outside world and you'll be bombarded by so many impressions. see this, try this, eat this, taste this, hear this, and the mind is immediately attracted. Mind immediately refers to the past life or past impressions, and then mind processes the information, and then the result is false ego will say, I want to enjoy. That is a series of things which happens. For example, if at somebody's home mother is cooking samosas, when the fragrance of the samosa enters the nostrils, immediately, the process starts. It all happens in a moment, in a split second. So many things are happening, we don't even realize. The senses, the nostril gathers the fragrance, then processes, our consciousness, chitta, processes that information, and then it is transferred to mind, and then mind refers to the past impressions. Okay, last time I had eaten these samosas, they were very good. And then the intelligence, it starts planning, okay, how can I get it now? And the purpose of all this is to please the boss. Who is the boss? False ego. False ego says, if I get this, I'll enjoy. So now intelligence plans. So that is how the mind is the beginning step in the enjoyment. Vishaya uparaktaha. Guna pravaha. Mind is under the control of three modes. We discussed in the second canto how the three modes of material nature, they are actually involved in transformation of the pradhana into mahatattva, and then under the modes of material nature, it transforms into mind, intelligence, and all that. And then vikritaha, guna pravaho vikritaha. Vikritaha means mind is subject to transformation of lust and anger. So when somebody is lusty or somebody is angry, one becomes disturbed, mind becomes disturbed. And then Shodashatmaha. Shodashatma means there are 16 elements which are there in the material nature. Mind is the chief of the 16 elements. And then he says, Bibhrat prithan namabi rupa bhedam. And the mind is the cause of different bodies in higher and lower elements. That's how mind is responsible. Whatever we think, we become. As very beautiful statement Chaitanya Charitamrita says, he says, we are dressed for and dressed by our desires. Whatever we desired in the past life, we have got a body according to that. And whatever we are desiring now, we will get a body according to that in the next life. So therefore we are dressed for and we are dressed by our desires. And this is all this thinking, feeling, and willing, they arise from mind. And then he says, Dukkham sukham vyatiriktam cha tivram kalopapannam phalamavyanakti alingya maya rachitantaratma swadehinam sram shriti chakra kutaha. He says, Sukham, Dukkham, all these are the transformations of the mind. Mind likes happiness the same way it likes distress. It experiences both to the same extent. Mind likes distress also and happiness also. Maya rachitantar atma. So this is the covering which is made by the Maya on the Jiva, living entity. And the result is samsriti chakra kutaha. And because of this mind, the person becomes engaged in this cycle of birth and death. And therefore, after saying all that, he says, actually, this samsara is the cause of mind, is caused by the mind. This material nature, this existence in this world is caused by the mind. Therefore, it is said in one of the scriptures that mana eva manushyanam karanam bandhanam mokshayah. Mind is the cause of bondage and liberation. As Bhagavad Gita, it is described many times. Krishna says, Bandhuratma atmanastasya yenatma evatmanajitah anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. Controlled mind is the best friend, uncontrolled mind is the worst enemy. And therefore in the 7th verse, Rahugan is saying, Jad Bharat is saying that the samsara is caused by the mind. This is the mind which makes the jiva wander through the different species of life in different conditions. Then somebody may ask, okay, how can the mind be the cause of bondage and liberation both? So Jad Bharat answers, because he gives the analogy of a lamp. He says, when the mind is absorbed in sense gratification, it brings about a conditional life and suffering. It is like when a flame of lamp burns improperly with a charred wick. You know, those who have experience of going to the villages where there is no light and then there's a lamp which is burning. When the wick is not burning properly, when there is less oil, then the result is the whole lamp, the glass of the lamp becomes blackened. That is how the mind works. When the mind is covered with sense gratificatory desires, ultimately the result is it becomes a bondage for the living entity. When the same mind becomes unattracted to sense gratification, it becomes the cause of liberation. And then he gives the analogy of a lamp which is filled with ghee and is burning very nicely, properly. And the result is there is a very bright illumination. So therefore, it is our responsibility to fill the mind with ghee. What is that ghee? The ghee of very pure desire for serving Krishna. Otherwise, when we are not filling the mind with all the thoughts of Krishna consciousness, then for sure, mind cannot be vacant, Prabhupada would always say, all these voidists, they say, we should not think about anything, but that is not possible. We cannot stay in a void. We have to put something in the mind. Prabhupada would give the example of a vacuum. Even if somebody may say, I'll create a vacuum, but it is very difficult to maintain the vacuum. Similarly, we cannot be devoid of any thoughts. We have to fill our mind with the thoughts of Krishna. As Ambarish Maharaj describes, it is described about Ambarish Maharaj. Savai manah Krishna padara vindayo vacham sivaikuntha gunanu varnane. So Ambarish Maharaj, he engaged all his senses in serving the Supreme Lord. Savai manaha, starting from the mind, because mind is the first thing which has to be engaged. If mind is engaged, then everything follows. So therefore, when the mind is filled with the thoughts of Krishna, then that is a path of liberation. And then after this, Jada Bharat, he describes the various functions of the mind. He says the mind is the chief of all the 10 senses. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Shrotram chakshu sparshanam cha rasanam ghranam evacha adhisthaya manaschayam vishayanupashevate. So all these senses, they are like the fingers of a hand, and the palm is like the center. That is the adhisthata. That is the prime entity which controls all the senses. So the 5 knowledge acquiring senses and their activities of sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, they are under the control of the mind. 5 working senses and their activities of speech, then touch, movement, evacuation, and sex life. These are under the control of the mind. And then also the functions of the ego. There are twofold functions of the ego: identification and possessiveness. Identifying with my body, I am this body. And possessiveness, this is my society, my family, my country, me and mine. So therefore, the mind creates unlimited transformations, and they are all under the control of Paramatma. So now somebody may say both Atma and Paramatma, they are Kshetragya. Kshetragya means one who knows this Kshetra. So what is the difference between Atma and Paramatma? And what is the difference between a conditioned soul and the liberated soul? So now from 12 to 14 verses, Jad Bharat describes who is a liberated soul, and later he'll describe who is Paramatma. So he says the liberated soul, he can see the transformations of the mind, and therefore he can see, okay, these are made by material energy. He can see that my mind is existing since time immemorial, and because of that I am developing all these desires. So therefore he does not identify with these desires. He understands, I am not this body, I am not this mind. And Prabhupada in the purport, he describes, he quotes the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He says there are two types of Kshetragya. Kshetragya means a knower of the field. So one type of Kshetragya is a living entity. We, the spirit soul, we know only our body. Another Kshetragya is the Supreme Lord, who knows all the living entities. So therefore, in the 12th verse, Jad Bharat is referring to that Kshetragya as the liberated Jiva, ordinary living being. He's not referring to the Supreme Lord. And therefore, Prabhupada quotes the verse from Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Ihayasya harer dasye karmana manasagira nikhila swabhya avasthasu jivan muktah sauchyate. So he's saying, Rupa Goswami says that who is a liberated soul? Who, even staying in this body, with his karmana, manasa, and gira, with his activities, with his mind, and with his words, always engages in service of the Lord. That is a liberated soul. There are three types of liberated souls. First, actually living in this body, there are three types of liberated souls. First is Gunatita and Swarupa Siddha. So this liberated soul, he has transcended the modes of material nature, and he has realized his position in the spiritual world, just like Raghunath Das Goswami. He knew he is Manjari in the spiritual world. He was assisting Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world while in meditation. That is a Gunatita and Swarupa Siddha. So how to describe them? Their both legs are in the spiritual world. They are just waiting for their time duration to get over in this material world. Second type are Swarupa Siddha, Agunatita, not Swarupa Siddha. They have also, these devotees, they have also transcended the modes, but they have not yet realized their Swarupa, their position in the spiritual world. For them, their one leg is in the material world, their one leg is in the spiritual world. Third type of liberated souls are, they are not Gunatita, they are not Swarupa Siddha, but they are endeavoring for liberation. And for them it is described, their both legs are in the material world, but their eyes are fixed in the spiritual world. They are eager, they are hankering to go to the spiritual world. His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he was telling once that there are two types of liberated devotees. There are two types of pure devotees. One type is those who are liberated, already pure. But second type are those who are endeavoring to become pure. So therefore, Prabhupada also writes this verse, Ihayasya harir dasye. And Chakravarti Thakur also writes that conditioned jivas are those who are always engaged in sense gratification, thinking that I am this body. But liberated jiva are those who are not troubled by the activities of the mind. And therefore, what is that liberated jiva? That liberated jiva, he understands that I am not this body, I am soul, I am supposed to serve the Supreme Lord. And then Jad Bharat, he describes, this liberated soul is engaged in service of that Supreme Lord. Who is that Supreme Lord? What are the characteristics of that Supreme Lord? That he describes in 13th and 14th verses. He says, that Supreme Lord is all pervading. He is the supreme controller. He is Adi Purusha Purana. He is self-effulgent. He is unborn, eternal. He is Narayana. He is Paresha. He's the controller of all the demigods. He is Bhagwan. And therefore he is all pervading. Just as air enters and controls the movements of all the living entities, similarly, Lord Vasudeva, he enters all the bodies and controls them. And then after describing this, Jada Bharat, he describes that, how long the jiva wanders in samsara. He says, till when we will wander in this material creation? This is very important to understand. Till when we will be there in this material world, when we will get liberation? He says, until a living entity is not free from material contamination, till the time the desires are there. Desire for sense gratification, desire for name, fame, prestige, adoration, distinction is there. There are gross material desires and there are subtle material desires. The gross material desires are relatively easy to give up. After practicing Krishna consciousness for some amount of time, the gross material desires, the temptations, we may tolerate. But the subtle material temptations are very, very difficult to tolerate. The desire for prestige, adoration, distinction is the last thing to go. That's how a devotee should be very, very careful. As we see in the story of Madhavendra Puri, when he was glorified, Madhavendra Puri, Toma lagi Gopinath khir koila churi. The Brahmana came running, the priest of Khirchor, Gopinath temple, and he is shouting in the marketplace, who is this Madhavendra Puri, for whom Gopinath has stolen sweet rice? Now Madhavendra Puri, he knew everybody will come and they will glorify me, I'll become famous. Pratisthar bhay puri gela palaiya, Krishna preme pratishtha chale sange gadaiya. A devotee of the Lord is never interested in any fame and prestige. Therefore, Madhavendra Puri, he ran away from that place. That is the mood a devotee should cultivate. Trinadapi sunichena, tarorapi sahishnuna, amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. So in this consciousness, when we are not desiring any respect for ourselves and desiring and giving all respect to others, in that consciousness we can chant the names always. And then he says, until one has conquered the 6 enemies, which are the 6 wives of a living entity. He says, Bhayam pramattasya vaneshwapi syadyatasya aste sahashat sapatnaha jitendriyasya atmarater buddhasya grihashramam kimnu karotyavadyam. So it is described about Priyavrat Maharaj. So Priyavrat Maharaj, he was a liberated soul. We discussed in the first chapter of this 5th canto. He was living in the ashram of Narad Muni, and then Swayambhu Manu came, and then Brahmaji came. They both convinced him, please come back because there is nobody to rule. Shukdev Goswami says that Priyavrat Maharaj, although he was living in the family, he was not controlled by the material desires. Why? Bhayam pramattasya, because even if a sannyasi, even if a spiritualist goes to a forest out of fear of material existence, he does not go alone. Yatassa aste sahashat sapatnaha. He goes with 6 wives. Who are the 6 wives? The mind and the 5 senses. So therefore, but then he says, Jitendriyasya, Atmarati and Buddha. So these are the 3 qualifications for a grihastha. Grihashramam kimnu karoti avadya. If a person in a family life tries to cultivate these 3 qualities, then what harm a grihastha ashram will do? He cannot be bound by the Atmajaya, Suta, Agar, Pashu, Dravid, Bandhu and Rajya. All these things cannot bind a person who is Jitendriya, who conquers his senses. Atmarati, who is self-satisfied, and Buddha, who is self-realized. He's very intelligent. He knows what to speak and when to speak, whom to meet, whom not to meet. When there is a beautiful verse which should be applied in everyone's life when dealing with the outside world or even with relatives who are not Krishna conscious. This verse says, Bhratayah pitarah putra gyatayah pitarah putra bhratarah suridopare yadvadanti yadichanti chanumodeta nirmama. So this is a very, very important principle which we have to learn to apply in our lives. And this will make our Krishna conscious practice easy. So this verse says that when people, gyataya, when your relatives, when your friends, pitaraha, when your father or grandfathers or mothers, gyataya, pitaraha, putra, when your son, then bhrataraha, when your brothers, bhrataraha, surida, when your well-wishers and others, when they give you some suggestion, it is not favorable for your Krishna consciousness and you don't want to offend them. Many times devotees have a difficulty. I don't want to offend my relatives, but I don't want to accept their proposals also. What should I do? This verse answers. Bhratarah gyatayah pitarah putra bhratarah suridopare yadvadanti yadichanti yadvadanti, whatever they say, yadichanti, whatever they desire, cha anumodeta nirmama, you should acknowledge their you know uh, suggestions by saying yes, yes, that is all right, wonderful suggestion you are giving. You should always acknowledge them, but nirmama, don't contemplate on them, don't accept their proposals. That's a very important concept. We don't have to argue with our relatives over everything they say. No, no, this is not favorable for Krishna consciousness, I cannot do this. No, just say yes, very nice. And in the heart you should know, I am not going to do this, but you don't have to say that in public. So therefore this is the secret to rise from this ocean of material existence. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, as long as one is free from this sarvopadhi vinirmuktam, as long as one is not free from this designation, he is bound in this material world. Therefore he quotes, sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktiruchyate. So therefore, till the time we have not given up our designation, bodily designation, sarvopadhi vinirmuktam, nirmalan, till the time we have not become purified, if we are not engaging our senses in service of the Rishikesha, Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam, we cannot become liberated. That is a process of devotional service. And Prabhupada writes that human form of life is meant for cleansing all these misconceptions. This is me, this is my body, this is my family, my relatives, my friends, my country. ब्रह्मांड भ्रमिते कौन भाग्यवान जीव Guru Krishna kripaye paye bhakti lata beach. Only by the mercy of the devotees of the Lord we can cross this ocean of material existence. So this is the whole process of becoming free from the cycle of birth and death. And then in the 16th verse, Jadbharat says that this mind is the sowing ground of all the tribulations in the material world. Whatever problem we are going through in this world, many times it arises because of our mind. We go out in the world and we see some advertisement or some of our friends say something and mind starts pondering over it. Oh, I should have that. Only if I could get this, my life would be very, very blissful. Only if I get this, either a thing or a person. So the conceptions of the mind always make a person very, very troubled. Most of the things which are portrayed in the outside world, they are all illusory. The happiness which we are trying to get, either it is unattainable, we do not attain that, we do not get that. Even if we get it, we do not get the same quality which we desired. It is unpalatable. Even if we get the quality which we desired, it is unretainable. We cannot retain it. So therefore, if the mind is not controlled, it will be the sowing ground of tribulations. Unlimited desires will enter the mind, and then we will be troubled because we ponder on those desires. That's the difference between a pure devotee and a sadhaka. The desire for sense gratification comes in everyone's mind. The desire, so the sense gratification desire may come, but the response to that desire is different for a devotee, pure devotee, and a struggling neophyte devotee. And Prabhupada would quote this example of Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya, he was a great devotee of the Lord, but in earlier life he was a king. And king means many wives, wealth, property, kingdom, everything was there. And he was a very wonderful, great king. Then he left everything, became such a great saint, great devotee of the Lord. And then he writes that when I remember the association of women, when the thoughts of sense gratification with women come in my mind, my lips curl in distress and I spit at that thought. Why? Because I have put the lotus feet of the Lord in my mind. Yadvadi mama chetah Krishna padara vinde navanavarasadhamni udyatam ramtum asit aho batanari sangame smaryamane bhavati mukhavikara shushto nishthi vanamcha. Yadvadi mama chetah Krishna padara vinde. Till the time after that my mind has become fixed in the lotus feet of the Lord. After that, Navanavarasadhamni, I am experiencing newer and newer, rasas every moment. Navanavarasadhamni udyatam rantumasi. And then, when I am experiencing this spiritual bliss, when the thoughts of association with women come in my mind, Nari Sangama Smaryamana, when I remember that, what is my reaction? Bhavati Mukh Vikara. My mind, my lips curl in distress and I spit at that thought. So this is a journey of a sadhaka. From contemplating on those thoughts to spitting on those thoughts. That's the journey. Many times our journey has 4 levels. First is helpless defeat. When the sense gratificatory desires enter, we surrender to that desire and we engage in sense gratification, helplessly defeated. After some time, struggle and then defeat. We struggle with that desire. No, I should not do this. But the desire is so very overwhelming. We surrender. We get defeated. Third is struggle and success. We struggle with the sense gratificatory desires and we become successful. That is the level we should try to come to. That is the level of a Madhyama Adhikari. And the highest level is effortless success. We don't have to even think of, should I enjoy or not? That's the difference between austerity and higher taste. Austerity means when you say no to sense gratification, grudgingly. I know I should not do this. That's why I want to do this, but because I have heard so many classes, okay, Bhagwan bhi kya yaad karenge, chhod diya, nahi karunga, that is grudgingly. And higher taste means when you say no to sense gratification happily. So that is a journey, and it all starts because of the mind's desires. Mind gets hooked on to some desires. That's why Bhagavad Gita says, when we go in the outside world, we should be like a tortoise, you should not try to explore the sense gratificatory objects which are there. We should just be focused inside, trying to chant more, try to hear more. And when we are in temple, when we are with devotees, then we should completely explore, take the beautiful darshan of the Lord, hear Bhagavatam, Krishna Katha. That is what will purify our mind. Shrotanjalir upasprishya dhunute karma vasana. When we hear the sound of Supreme Personality of Godhead's form, pastimes, name, it purifies all the karma vasana. Therefore, Jadbharat says, as long as the possessiveness or sense object is there, the samsara will continue. Till the time aham and mameti is there, this samsara will continue. And then he says, uncontrolled mind is the greatest enemy of a living entity. Given a chance, it will become so powerful that it will completely cover the constitutional position of a jiva. So therefore, mind should not be allowed to do whatever that mind wants. And then he gives two very strong weapons, how to control the mind, how to conquer this mind. This is very, very important for a sadhaka, as a spiritualist. How to conquer the mind? First, he says by upeksha, and second, apramattaha. First, we have to neglect the mind, and second, we have to be attentive. So, and third is a very, very important. First is upeksha, third is being attentive, and second is being attentive, and third is conquer this mind, cut off this mind by the weapon of service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, service to the lotus feet of Guru and the Lord. Gurur Harer Charanopasanastro. That is the astra. Guru and Hari Charana Upasana. So conquering the mind starts with neglecting the mind. Mind will give so many desires, so many thoughts. The moment we get up, mind says, "So jaya." You have slept late, and whole day is busy, and therefore please sleep now. Chanting to hota hi rahega, din bhar ho jayega chanting, So just sleep for 1 hour more. And then you will get up and chant nicely. All of us, we can, think of this situation. It has come in every devotee's life, and this thought must have come. Abhi so jata hu. Dekho, anyways, if I get up now, I will be sleepy. I will not able to chant properly. If I sleep now and then get up after 1 hour, I will chant nice rounds. And then we slept. And then we got up after 1 hour. And then again we sat for chanting. And then what happened? Again we fell asleep. Again our mind is distracted. So that is how mind cheats us. What we have to do? Neglect the mind. If you have decided, okay, I'm going to get up, that means please do not listen to the proposals of the mind when the alarm rings. Okay, because you have decided, I have decided, I will get up. So this is the easy, although it is, Srila Prabhupada writes, the easy weapon to conquer the mind is neglect. Although it is not so easy. To neglect the mind is not so easy because we have not trained our mind. It will become easy. Just like a firefighter, the day one when he enters this fire brigade department, firefighting department, the day one when he's sent to extinguish a fire, the fire may look very, very bewildering. Same firefighter, after 20 years, he may be sent to a place to extinguish the fire. Fire may remain same, but his practice, his determination will become very, very strong. That's what will happen over the years in Krishna consciousness. Now, because we have not practiced conquering our mind, neglecting our mind, it is a very difficult thing. But over a period of time, Prabhupada writes, one should disobey the orders of the mind expertly. Many times you have to negotiate with the mind. Okay, if your mind says just go to sleep, you can negotiate with the mind. At least allow me to chant 8 rounds. After 8 rounds, I'll go to sleep. And after 8 rounds, okay, I can chant 2 more rounds. So at least if you are done with 10 rounds, then okay, you can go to sleep. So mind will also be a little bit pacified, and then you will slowly and steadily conquer the mind. Therefore, Prabhupada writes, one should disobey the orders of the mind expertly. Expertly means we don't have to say absolute no. Just negotiate with the mind slowly, you know. Otherwise, mind is like if a person is married and the spouse is not favorable. If the wife is not favorable and a person is a devotee, then what he should do? If he says, I want to chant, and wife says, no, I don't want you to chant, we'll go to see a movie. So then he says, nothing doing, I'll chant, you are all, materialist and sense gratifier and all that. What will happen? Wife will say, you do whatever you want, I'm not going to cooperate. So then if the husband says, okay, we'll go out to see a movie, but at least allow me to chant, and then, we'll go together to see a movie. So for time being, slowly she will also help, okay, cooperate, okay, I'll allow my husband to chant. That's what happened with this prostitute who went to Haridas Thakur. And what Haridas Thakur did, very expertly said, I will surely fulfill your desires. Just stay and listen to my chanting. For sure, I have taken this vow of chanting. Once I am over, I'll definitely fulfill your desires. So that is what we have to do. Slowly and steadily neglect the mind, and then abide by the orders of the Guru and engage in devotional service. Therefore, Prabhupada Chakravarti Thakur writes, neglecting the mind, the enemy, one must attack it. By neglecting, it is defeated. One should not praise the mind by noticing it and giving it desired enjoyment. So therefore, we should not praise, we should not accept the proposals of the mind, just neglect it. And in this way, we can destroy this samsara. So this is the end of the 11th chapter. So we'll stop here. We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. If anybody has any questions, they can ask.